Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we've got 10 games to choose from. Weird stuff going on in these slates. We don't know who's playing all the time. Some guys are in and out. Make sure you're staying on those lineup changes all over the place, definitely on thelines.com as well. We're going to dive into the Phoenix Suns and Minnesota Timberwolves in this game. We've also got another game video and our player props up for you, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Also head to thelines.com. That's where we have our great written content up there for you and our odds finder tool that you can use to make sure you're getting the best odds available to you from all these bets that are giving us these books, rather, that are giving us bets in the NBA this season. Nate, let's jump through this 10-game slate here and then talk about the Suns and T-Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, some weird stuff, but also just some teams, padding their position at this point, including the Bucks, who are minus 12 at Indy. It's front end of a back-to-back. They play Boston tomorrow. Dallas is plus 4 at Philly. We wanted to talk that game, but can't touch it because apparently Embiid and Harden are not reliable to play in games that matter. Rockets are plus 11 at the Nets. I don't really trust the Nets to cover an 11-point spread, but we're not going to talk about that one because it's boring as hell. Heat plus 5 at Knicks. That's a good one to talk once we know who might actually play for the Heat. Jazz minus 6 at Spurs. Lakers are minus 2.5 in a rematch at the Bulls. Pistons plus 11 at the Thunder. Then we get into the last two games, which we will talk here. Clippers are plus 4 at Memphis, total of 233. The Wolves are plus 5 at the Suns here, which is the game we're looking at with Kevin Durant expected to play. And then I missed one. Yeah, Kings minus 14 at the tanking Blazers. But yeah, KD is back, expected to go as long as there's not a setback. And no, don't make any jokes about him slipping again in warmups. He's going to take it real easy. As Charles Barkley said, I never did warmups. None at all. But yeah, I mean, with him out there, it was a 3-game sample size, and the Suns look like absolute juggernauts, scoring 120 a game, 138 offensive rating in their second two against the Bulls and Mavs. Granted, it was the no defense Mavs, but I mean, it's 16 threes at 40%. Devin Booker thriving alongside KD, really just like eating off the weak side because teams have to load up on Kevin Durant. And you don't necessarily expect him to come back and be gunning like he was in that debut against Charlotte, but just his presence is just going to open things up for Booker and Paul, who have sort of righted the ship without him, right? Beating a shorthanded Sixers team and a Jazz team to snap that skid, showcasing some pretty good offense. Booker has been very productive in his last 5 against Minnesota, 27 points at a 126 rating, plus 66. And the Suns won all 5 of those games. And then, yeah, his 3 with Durant out there, 36 points per game on a 141 offensive rating. Like I said, thriving. Jaden McDaniels is a great individual defender who will probably be on Durant, but the Suns just have guys that can get theirs going. I'm looking at Chris Paul matching up against Mike Conley. It's probably the rare time that CP3 might be the younger, fresher point guard out there. So he might be able to score a little more than expected. He's definitely going to be facilitating. And what you saw in these 3 games is the Suns settling into their roles really quickly and really impressively with Ayton, double-double machine, Paul just diming up, and Booker being the main option with KD just being like, I can fit in wherever, and just destroying 3 teams. So, I mean, minus 5 is not a ton. This actually opened minus 6. I'm surprised anybody's betting on the Wolves, who are just wildly inconsistent. Like, I want to look at the over. I would lean over, but I cannot trust Minnesota. Like, they're either way the hell under or way the hell over right now. They're just like fluctuating between how they were last year and this year. And even if you look at the 2 games where they got Cat in the lineup, massive high scoring game with Atlanta and then a low scoring win against the Warriors, in which, I don't know, you can talk about that one. Did they get lucky? What happened? But they were able to hold them in check. And look, they had lost 6 straight against Phoenix before getting a win with no CP3 and Book when everybody was getting the Suns. And the Suns, even with their backups, scored 41 in the fourth quarter there, shot 61% from 3 against this Wolves team. They're going to be a much better fourth quarter team than the Wolves. And Here's the thing. I mean, how is Minnesota scoring, especially with Cat in there? They're going to be attacking the paint even more. They're already getting the sixth highest percentage of paint points in March. Phoenix is third denying paint points in March. And most of that obviously is without Durant. Now he's in an excellent defender down there at that position, can handle Cat. And I think once you see a larger sample size of Cat playing alongside Gobert, which we saw early in the season, it was really ugly. It was really a struggle for them to score at times. And, not playing Atlanta now, I don't know if they can score. I certainly don't think they can score with this Suns team. So I'm leaning towards Suns to cover and probably get their team total, but I don't trust the Wolves to come along.
Yeah, it's so much variance with the Timberwolves. I mean, I had a thought yesterday where I was writing actually about the Sacramento Kings for the lines, and I was looking at that being like, this is one of the few teams in the West that, I mean, the question mark is like, oh, they're young and whatever. My main point is I was going through the other teams in the West and just going through each of the problems that they have. And when you look at the Suns, I was like, if KD stays healthy, let me just see what these odds are for them to win the championship right now. And they're sitting at plus 220 for them to make it out of the West and just win that. And then if you want them to be the champion, they're sitting at the third best odds and the best in the West, obviously, at plus 450. And this is all dependent on whether or not Kevin Durant just stays healthy, right? Like, can Durant stay healthy? And then the Suns are the favorite to come out of the West based on three games that we've seen with them. And I think there's some legitimacy to, even though it's such a small sample size, you can kind of bank on what we saw with that Kevin Durant 3-game span because of the impact that it had on the rest of the team. It's not just KD came in, dropped 40, showed everyone that he can score on anyone, and It's like, no, they already have Devin Booker and Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. So can you just come in and kind of be the equivalent of Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges and Torrey Craig all in one player and also be like a really good shot blocker? And the answer is yes, he can. He can be all three of those players on offense, and then he can basically do everything that they do on defense plus block shots and protect the rim better than any of those guys. So with all that said, like the impact on Booker, especially on offense on that side of the ball, is like it's wild, right? I mean, remember that clip of Book playing in summer league and not wanting to get double teamed because he hates it. He's never going to get double teamed again. There's no way to double team him and Kevin Durant and then leave DeAndre Ayton and or Chris Paul with like one or nobody guarding them. It doesn't work. So that's what he did when he came to the Warriors. That's what he's going to do now is the way he spreads out the offense and the types of points that they're getting. Those assists numbers for the Suns with him in there are awesome. They're bananas, and the teams that he was playing in those situations were teams that actually limit assists pretty well, including the Chicago Bulls. So I think, for the Suns, we know what we're getting, and I do like to talk about their team total. I know Minnesota's been pretty good on defense here and there, but like you said, there's not much trend to really bank on in terms of where they're playing and where they're giving up points versus not giving up points. Like you were saying, that that game against the Hawks was a home game, went 124-125. And then the next game is the Warriors. Neither team gets to 100 in Golden State. And then they're playing at the Kings. And obviously that one goes back to 234. But it's like the road and home variance isn't really there. The Warriors played in a game that was 241 at home last night, right? So that 99-96 game they just played at home versus these T-Wolves, like that's an anomaly as well. Don't tell me the Timberwolves are that much better at defense right now, than who Golden State played last night. So at this point, I'm really considering Phoenix pretty strongly here. I think they're going to come out with something to play. -5 is right about where I would put it. It's pretty fair. But I do think if you're talking about down the stretch, like you said as well, Phoenix being able to stop what Minnesota does, especially in the clutch, stopping those fast break points, stopping those points in the paint. If you can do that, which Phoenix has done really well, as you mentioned, specifically in March, they've done that really well. They are going to need to get back on defense a little bit more as they are giving up fast break points, and that's going to be huge in this one. But I think also like the fast break points come off of points off of turnovers and things of that nature. And if you're getting a few less minutes, right? If there's no Noel and no Prince, that's two guys that are playing in transition. Those are two versatile wings that play really well on both sides of the floor versus Cat, who, say what you will about his defense, it's not really going to really stop too many people, and it's also not his game to necessarily get out and fast break, right? So like this is going to be a little bit less of that. T-Wolves able to kind of get the points that they want the way that they normally get them. So the total does scare me because I don't know how to bet on a team that has so much variance like these T-Wolves, but I do know the Suns are going to score, and if the T-Wolves don't come along for the ride, then I'm not as comfortable with that over.
Yeah, when it's hard to score transition points when you're taking the ball out of the basket, when the other team's scoring 138 points per 100 possessions.
Right.
So, I mean, that'll definitely help the Suns. And yeah, you said the Wolves defense has not been inconsistent. It's been consistently bad. It's 120 defensive rating in their last 7 roadies. It's just that for some reason, the pace has crawled to a halt in that Kings game, which you said hit 234. For some reason, they're at a 94 pace, whereas they were previously at like 100 and
no De'Aaron
won
Fox.
their last.
There's no De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah. So, I mean, for what it's worth, yeah, they're 15 and 26 against the spread on equal rest. Minnesota, this is a fair shake here. I mean, I'm more looking at the defense just regressing even worse in March. Like what they've hung their hat on is, giving up some threes and free throws, but not letting you get to the rim or get your mid range going, which you think would be good against the Suns. But they're down to 18th in 2-point percentage in March. They're down to 28th in 3-point percentage. And the Suns we've seen with KD are a much more dangerous 3-point shooting team. And just they've actually been ramping up in that regard without him at home since the All-Star break, hitting 14 threes at 39%, scoring 120 with or without him. So yeah, again, if it's a team total in the 120 range, I'm on that with the Suns, but I don't think it's that complicated. Yeah, I think they're going to cover here. And certainly going to win the game. So I think it's a good parlay if you want to look at other games too, is just Suns money line right here.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, there's definitely enough games to parlay this money line with for them. The Wolves have been feisty for sure at different times, and when they're the underdog, like I think you briefly mentioned, they're much better. Because they're coming in without those expectations, and that's when they seem to surprise us. It's those random games where we're like, oh, the Wolves, man, they looked good the last couple of games. Let's go ahead and take them as the favorite at home versus this team, or a lower dog. But not the case for them anymore. In terms of this one, I think they're pretty overmatched, and the way that Phoenix is going to score is not what Minnesota is able to stop. Like you said, yeah, consistently bad on defense for the most part, and definitely on the road. So that's all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Check out the other couple videos we have up for you today. Until we see you next, happy betting.